Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Balmer Brown. With me are my two partners and key contributors. That would be Immaculate View and Moen Show. How are you guys? Did you guys have a good Christmas?
Yeah, it was great. How
Great.
about yours?
Always good. If I wake up in the morning and I can talk and walk, I'm having a good day. So I have very small needs as those things go. Um, We're not quite to the first of the year. This will be the last week that we're starting to bring in some new features next year. And this will be the last week we use the old format. So we're just letting everybody know we're still going to be doing realignment. We're still going to be talking about playoff games and some of the games that have been the bowl games. But then next year, so in just a week, we're going to start doing some shorter format stuff. Hopefully we can get some more customized services out to people that are members of the channel, and we encourage everybody to become a member. Here's a video if you would like to become a member of Big 12 Mafia, and just follow these instructions right from the Big 12 Mafia page.
Become a member of Big 12 Mafia by going to our homepage and hitting the join button located next to the subscribe button in the upper right corner. There are several membership levels to choose from.
It's exciting stuff. And again, I have to thank Moen for the new intro and also that video that he put together for how people can sign up for the show.
Great stuff.
Really quick, let's get some shout outs. We've already got over almost 60 people on live, and that is fantastic. And we're very grateful for all of you joining us tonight. There's going to be some feedback. We're going to go back and forth. We don't have a guest. So we're going to be talking about what realignment might look like in the coming year. And we are going to involve a bunch of you guys' comments, hopefully. So we encourage you guys to stick around and become part of the show, which is what we encourage. First off, let's get some hellos out there. Joey Z is in the house. Jan Hulk, who's one of our new members. The Big Lubbock is here. Let's see here. The Big Lubbock says the week Texas Tech played BYU. Tech had injuries to 15 of its original starting 22 players. That's true. I knew they were injured when they came and played at Provo. I was at that game. It was a good one. BR is here. Good to have you here, BR, the enforcer of the Big 12 Mafia channel. Raider Vision is here. Let's see here. Let me get to some people I haven't said their names. Casting for Chrome is in the house. AMAC is also here. Glenn Lumen, all the way from the Philippines. Good morning, Glenn. Good to see you. He says, how many schools should the Big 12 add?
Here we go.
Go for it. Come on, let's talk.
4.
Let's go.
Initially 4.
4? Okay.
Maybe more. I mean, they have the most likelihood too because they have to pay the least amount to each new school. So they have actually more flexibility in this regard than the Big or the SEC do.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Charles M is here. Let's see, Ag Biochemist, another one of our members. It's time for bingo. So this realignment bingo, we're going to try to make it a little bit more formal, and it's going to, we'll have ideas that you guys can interact with us. Everybody's ideas matter, and it's going to be a long-term conversation. It starts tonight, but it's probably going to go, I would say, through the end of January. So we encourage everybody to become part of that process. And I guarantee you, some of you people are going to have your minds changed by some of the information that we share with you. Jim F is in the house. OPD Don is here. Let's see. Raider Vision, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk. I'm waiting for it. There we go. Take Me Home, Take On Me is here. How do we say this? Antoine Codes? Is that
Antoine Codes?
Antoine. Okay. I can't say that fast. I'm sorry. Let's see here. We'll get down to the end. Jim Reese. That's somebody new. Craig Kirsch. Good to have you here. And we'll end there. So first, before we start getting into some of these opportunities, we want to encourage everybody to subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Follow us all on Twitter, and then turn on your notifications. That way you know when our shows are going to be happening. Okay, we're going to, these aren't necessarily rants, more monologues, but Immaculate, and now we're 2 weeks past Florida State's action. What are you feeling right now about their realignment step in their lawsuit?
Kind of the surprises that came out of it. I mean, we all knew this was coming, but I honestly didn't know how strong their case was going to be, what they're going to do, if they were just prepared to buy their way out. Some of the kind of the bombshells that they dropped really has me wondering if there's any more. If it's just like a first salvo across the board, just to say, don't keep fighting this, because if there's anything more to it than that, this is definitely FSU's fight. I just have a hard time understanding how a conference can be allowed to hold them to such a cost and say it's all about the bylaws when the president doesn't follow the bylaws himself. Now, I've had some multiple lawyers online say each instance is on its own, so one doesn't get the other, and I understand that, but that's a tough case to bring. This could be interesting if ESPN at the end of this has to decide immediately on whether or not they're going to drop the ACC in 2027. That might be the result of one of these court proceedings.
Moen, I know you've been reaching out, not just talking about the ACC, but you're also looking at other schools in other conferences that could be a potential part of this next move in realignment. Why don't you drop some teases on that?
The SEC will lose a team to the Big Ten. The ACC will lose several teams to the Big Ten. The Big 12 will lose a team to the Big Ten.
That's a good tease. That's going to be fun to talk about. So we want to encourage everybody to be part of this process as we talk about these schools. I'm going to share a screen. It's a simple spreadsheet. We're going to work in hopefully some graphics, but we want everybody to know these are the schools that we're currently talking about and where they might go. Please give us your comments back. First blush, where you think your school's going to end up, and where do you think schools might go at the end? Because there is potential that somebody thinks they're going somewhere today, like Greg talked about Miami going to the Big Ten, when in actuality that doesn't necessarily happen and they end up somewhere else. So let's first start with the list itself that we're talking about at the ACC. And I know I've missed a couple schools here, so you guys are going to have to help me fill in the gap. Let me do this presentation, get everybody so they can see what we're looking at. I did this list very quickly, so don't get mad at me because I missed some schools. Who am I missing there? Because doesn't it have 15?
Wake Forest.
Thank you. And?
Who's
Boston
Stan?
College? No, I got them. Who did I miss? All right, well, they must not be important if we can't think about it. All right, here we go. All right, first of all, I'm going to give you a chance to start off with Immaculate. Just really quick, where do you think these schools end up?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with Florida State to the Big Ten right now. I think the Big Ten isn't doing both Florida State and Clemson, so I do not have Clemson going there. I don't think they're going to the SEC. I'm putting Clemson in the Big 12.
Okay.
North Carolina State, UVA, VT, you got them all. More for me. I think they're all going to the SEC with half or 2/3 pay each from the regular yearly payout on the SEC. So those next four to the SEC.
Hang on a second. You're going a little bit fast for me.
I know. That's why I'm still talking while you're.
Yeah. I want to get everybody's name on here so we don't make a mistake and don't include them. Bummer. All right. So let's do that again. You said I got your Clemson, I got your Florida State.
The next four are all SEC.
All these are SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next four.
Well, I am going to go to Pitt and say Big 12.
Okay.
Now I have Miami split. I think that if they get what they want, along with some others what they want, they will be still in the ACC. If that's going to not happen, or if that blows up at some point in time behind the scenes and it never comes to be, then I think Big 12. So if you want to put down ACC, Big 12, like both.
Happy to. Okay.
BC is ACC, Syracuse, ACC.
Okay.
Notre Dame, just put them Indy for now. Louisville is Big 12, and Wake Forest is ACC.
You said Notre Dame was Indy.
Yeah, just Indy for now.
Okay.
Like they're the same deal.
Louisville was where?
Louisville will be Big 12.
Okay. And then Wake Forest is ACC.
I'm sorry,
right?
you digitalized.
I said Wake Forest is ACC.
Can you hear him, Owen?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Okay, it's me.
Yeah, I think I'm getting you in and out, Immaculate. Can you hear me now? Moen, can you hear him? All right. Well, I'm
I
going to tell
can't
you
hear
right now.
Immaculate.
We got
You need to
some
add
technical
Georgia Tech and Duke to the ACC schools.
Tech
Yeah.
and Duke. Those were the last two that I
Georgia
wanted
Tech
to
and
get.
Duke.
Okay. So what this is basically saying, and what Immaculate's proposing, is that the ACC stays together and it exists still as a conference. To do that, they would probably have to be anchored and continue to be anchored by Notre Dame, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to add Calford and SMU to that ACC list as well.
I don't think so. Let's stick with 2024.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually let's stay with 2023-24 and say, because I think this movement happens sooner than August of next year. And I think the reason is because that is when Florida State is able to settle, or their lawsuit will go through. So let's just assume that that's going to happen, and we don't have to worry about Calford and SMU quite yet. We'll get to that in another night. All right, Moen, give me yours, and I will be happy to put these anywhere you want them.
We're only doing this for the 23-24 season, not
Correct.
further. Okay.
Right.
So Clemson stays ACC.
Okay.
Florida State's big.
Okay.
The next four are SEC.
Okay.
Miami is big.
Okay.
Boston College remains ACC.
Okay.
Syracuse joins the Big 12.
That'll be fun to talk about. Pitt.
Pitt joins the Big 12.
Okay.
Louisville joins the Big 12.
Okay. Oops.
Notre Dame
right.
stays with their ACC affiliation.
Yeah, I'm gonna do Indy/ACC is what I'm gonna do. All right. Wake Forest, the rest of these.
ACC.
Where? All ACC. Okay.
Yep. They're sticking with it.
We don't have we don't have Immaculate back yet. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, let me get mine. So if we're talking about where schools go, and we're all going to assume that Florida State is going to be in the Big Ten, and I think we can pretty much take to the bank. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had a lawsuit. So let's just assume that's where it's going to be at. And really quick, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We've got only over 100 people watching us live. Please subscribe to our show, and then make sure you follow us on Twitter, and you can be part of this conversation. Moen, if you wouldn't mind start watching, sir, for some of the messages for some of these guesses that are out there, and we can talk about those things.
Sure.
Moderation, I should say. Okay. Clemson. I'm going to talk through each one of these. Clemson, I really believe, is in big trouble. I think that if they were going to go to the Big Ten, they'd already have gone to the Big Ten. I am in a position where I think they're going to either end up in the Big 12 or in the Big Ten. I think that's my opinion. So I'm going to say the Big Ten or the Big 12. Let's see here. Florida State, again, we've got in the Big Ten. UNC, I think we all agree now, because of the legal ramifications, SEC is going to get all four of these schools. Really quick, do you think that's a good get for the SEC?
It's the only get that makes sense for them. They have to expand their regional footprint. You add Virginia, you add North Carolina, two rapidly growing markets. It makes sense.
Okay. Miami is a lot like Clemson. If Miami gets the invite for Clemson, then the Big 12 is going to get Clemson. And I would say the same thing. If Miami doesn't get the Big 10 invite, in my opinion, they're going to end up in the Big 12. I don't think either one of these schools, Clemson or Miami, and let's quickly highlight those so
By the way,
everybody knows why they matter.
I have GT in the Big Ten, not the ACC. Sorry, I had bad internet. That I don't know what happened.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think these two schools could flip-flop. Wherever Clemson ends up, I don't think the other one goes. So one of them is going to end up in the Big 12. That's my opinion. Boston College. Now, you guys have put all these guys in the ACC still. How can the ACC exist if they lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 schools?
Well, let me ask you a question. How can the Big 12 exist losing 1, 2, 3, 4 schools? You backfill.
Because the difference is the number of schools that are available. Who will they backfill with?
Tulane, Rice.
Okay, we'll do that next. Let me finish this.
All right,
okay.
That's going to be quite the conversation.
So we're going to say, you guys are giving it a name. It might as well be the ACC.
Yes.
I personally think that name anyway. Pitt, again, I think Pitt is on the edge. We know that their numbers aren't as good as some other schools. Wild Ute showed us that in his presentation, but I'm going to give them credit, and I'm going to give them the rivalry with West Virginia, which we have so many people that are fans of our show that are West Virginia fans. So I'm going to say that they're going to get rewarded with some rivalry stuff. So I'm going to say that Pitt goes to the Big 12. I'm going to say Louisville goes to the Big 12. I'm going to say Notre Dame. Again, you guys have Indy ACC. I think there's a good chance that they could go to the Big 10 too. This round. I'm talking about this round, not in 5 years. And then I'll put ACC in there because there is a possibility they want to run their own thing still. That could happen. And then these last three, Georgia Tech, I think, has a big chance. I actually think Duke has a chance for the Big 12. Basketball's big. We know how Yormark likes basketball. He talks about it all the time. I'm going to say the ACC or the Big 12. And then that Georgia Tech is the one that I think everybody says, wow, if it's not the Big 10, it might be the AAC. Is that kind of what we're thinking? Immaculate?
I mean, I think it's either the Big 10 or the Big 12.
Oh, you think it could go to the Big 12?
I think that once these schools start to go, the value between the Big 12 and ACC will be clear, and they are a public school. So my idea on what might come to be in the ACC, I actually don't think they'd want GT there. Although in a lot of ways, like a GT or Virginia, those type of schools would match up just in terms of academics and whatnot. But yeah, I think you have an ACC big. I mean, I just think that location in the Big 12 would be pretty phenomenal.
So let's go with a count of schools then. Out of the ACC, how many of these go into each individual conference? So we'll put the Big, we'll put the ACC, and we'll put the Big 12. So if we're going to estimate all of these, do we think that the big number is 1, 2, or 3?
2 this round.
2. Okay, do you agree with that, Immaculate?
For the Big 10, yeah.
Okay, so you actually have 3 here, counting the potential of Miami. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. So I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be 2. So we'll just say 2 here. The ACC, how many? If we could just do a quick estimation, I think the ACC is decimated personally. So who has the most ACC schools? Immaculate has 5. Moen has 5, and I have 6.
You have to add the 3 that are incoming too when you're determining how many are in the ACC.
Well, we did this. This is 23, 24.
I know. Okay, well.
Yeah, I'm not counting those schools yet. Well, that's a different page. We'll do that next.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to say the average of ACC schools that are going to stay ACC is going to be 5. Roughly, that's what the average is with our different picks. And then the Big 12 then would be picking up how many of those schools? I have 1, 2, 3. I have 5 Big 12 pickups. How about you guys?
3 from the ACC and 1 independent. So I have
You
4.
have 3. I have 5. What about you, Immaculate? I'm trying to do an average.
I just have 4 going to them.
Okay.
And not that that's the last, but just in
Right, of
terms of
course
this, like with the ACC and what's going on there, I got 4.
Okay, so I'm going to roll up and say that's 5 schools. We won't count Notre Dame. They're kind of a flyer. So I think between all 4 of us, 4 and 5 is a good number. So that means right now, how many schools are in that aren't going to be, is the ACC going to be a power conference by 2024?
Yes.
I think with the schools that are in the ACC that'll be left behind, they have enough political power to remain as an autonomous conference.
Okay, so we know they're picking up 3 schools, the 3 new incoming schools,
Mm-hmm.
and then
They'll
we
have
add
their 8.
Notre Dame. So that would be they're a conference with 9 schools, is what you're saying.
With that, there's more that I would add. If you're going outside of this situation,
Well, I'm
I do
talking
think
power conference schools. I'm only talking power conference schools at this point.
I think Rice is an eventual. I think Rice is going to be there.
Well, there's Tulane, there's Rice, there's Memphis.
Tulane's a maybe. I mean, I know people are going to go, Tulane's a better team. I'm looking at market. I'm looking at the school. Rice is probably before Tulane, Houston. I definitely think the Ivy's going to be lodged, but that's probably not going to be till, it's going to be a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. So I think that the ACC is probably going to try and go with 10.
Okay.
That's what they'll figure out ones
you
that
want to
match
end
their
up
long
the
term.
final number you think they should stay in is 10 then?
Right, I think 8 to 10, honestly. Like,
okay, well, I've got 9
just stay
as
as
an
minimum as possible, and get just whatever pay ends up being for that year or two. You just divide it up as little as possible, especially with all the exit fee money that will be coming in. Just keep it small. Don't bring in a whole bunch of schools that's going to take it up. And then they'll probably be doing a little more addition here, 26, 27. They'll come in a little bit later with what they're going to do, I think.
Moen, what do you think?
They're going to add Tulane, Rice, Oregon State, and Washington State.
Fair.
Okay, so you're going to have that's 5 new additions, right? So they're going to be at 14 is what you're saying.
For right now, with Notre Dame on board, yes. 14.
Yeah, I'm counting Notre Dame in that number. Yeah. Okay, so our estimate, and I'll just put estimate here, is 14. Okay, going by those numbers, depending on what happens with Duke, I think all the other schools that we've talked about potentially going to the Big 12, it looks to me like that number is 4 or 5. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I got Big 10 with 2 and then the other 2 with 4. But those could be quickly followed up with other ones. But just right now, I'm just looking short term, like what happens with the ACC. And so I'm just going with 2, 4, and 4.
Let's talk about Duke really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you guys see Duke at? If they're not in the ACC, can they exist anywhere else?
Oh, I definitely have them ACC. I think them, Stanford, and Notre Dame are now the new de facto leaders of what's going to be the future ACC.
Okay, and then you're talking about the academic conference.
It's just this new private conference league.
Right.
They're all in a big class action where they're all being sued together for price fixing. I mean, their interests are all aligned. Might as well just have their own conference where they can control their rules.
I think that's a decent guess. The ACC thing, the question I have about is if the conference drops down and they lose 8 schools, they have to backfill. ESPN has the right to renegotiate.
That's going to happen.
So what's the value going to be for that conference?
The renegotiation is guaranteed.
I know.
I mean,
so
I can't guarantee it.
Of the ACC?
I mean, you're going to have yourself at this point in time a pretty broad range, but I would say initially it's going to be the bottom. It's going to be the 4th, and they're going to have to persist on that until You know, if once the Ivy has no longer can do the rules the way they do with scholarships and whatnot, they're going to have to change big time.
So you
And
think
so
it's
they're
20
either
to 25 million?
nah. I think maybe
Nah.
15 to 20.
15, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
it's
these
not.
these are all going to be institutions that can exist without that additional
Yeah,
athletic
absolutely.
revenue.
And
They've got huge endowments.
it's a big part of that is that they can survive that. It's not
Well,
a
the
problem.
endowment doesn't run the athletic department,
Yeah,
though.
it's just like it's a sign of how much money
So-
they could raise from donors. Like this is the
Okay,
type
all
of
right.
clout that they have. Like, yeah, it's not direct, it's an indirect reference to what they could get.
Okay.
I like what
let's
SMU did.
let's add an estimation for the Big 12. What do you do? Are they able to? Are they just going to get their per diem? In other words, the number, not per diem, the pro
Per
rata
school.
number,
Yeah.
the 31.7, or if they are able to steal a Clemson and or a Miami, does that give them enough power with Pitt and Louisville to renegotiate higher?
Not this round.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. I put out a little exercise on X. I took the lineup of the 8 schools left in the Big 12 plus the new 4 from the AAC. You take that lineup of 12 and then you compare it to the new lineups of the 4 from the West and then whatever 4 you take from the East, and you look at it in value and say, do those next 8 provide significant increase in value to the conference in order to have a reasonable place to ask for a raise, basically? I think they do.
I do.
I think they do. I
do.
look at that because you got to include the 4 pack schools as part of that.
Exactly.
Because that number came about before them. Now, it included pro rata additions, which is, I'm not going to say that's wrong to anyone who would respond with that. But that doesn't mean they can't ask for more when you look at the 8 or so additions. I think 35, conservatively, yeah. I don't think that you could push towards 40 just yet, but I think 35 is reasonable, especially because they're going to, if ESPN wants this to actually happen, they're going to have to give a little bit in order to get those schools, because they're getting like 40 something in the ACC, right?
Yeah,
Now,
around about 42, 43,
Yeah.
I think is where
that's
they're
in
at.
total. That's everything.
I understand. But that's what I'm saying, like 35 in the Big 12 plus all the extras that they get, because they don't calculate it all the same, and they say what their base number is, and then there's more, like they got like 44 million. But I think just to get them to do it, I think you probably have to say, hey, we'll go up to 35.
All right, let's do that. I'll change it to 36, actually.
I'm thinking 35. Yeah, 36.
Okay. All right. And then what about the Big 10? Does it keep its 70 that's right now about an average when you add these new schools that don't have any weight? Or is that value going to stay same, or is it going to go up?
It'll stay same for this round. Florida State and Miami are probably going to have to take partial shares.
Okay.
But even at partial shares, they're going to be doing much better than they are in the ACC. They're probably going to be coming in around 55 million each.
Okay. All right. That's more than Washington and Oregon got. So
It's true. It's
that same
Washington and Oregon didn't bring Florida.
Absolutely right.
I don't think Florida State's going to have to take the same price tag as the other school. Now, we've seen that, like with the Oregon and Washington, but that's because they went through the exact same experience to get here, costs and everything. I think whoever else is coming with Florida State largely owes that position to Florida State and everything that they're doing to kind of push this along. So I don't think they get equal. I think Florida State will get closer to full pay than whoever goes with them.
What's the total count for Big 10 schools? Right now they're sitting at 18.
18.
If you look at the schools that we're talking about here moving over, I'm seeing 22.
20 on my chart for right now. 20.
I'm at 20.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, those two might not even go. Okay, so we're saying 2 schools.
Yeah,
They
you
go to
only have
20.
two. You only have 2. Yeah,
Well, I have these estimated ones. that
yeah,
are
but
potential.
one of them's going Big
Yeah.
12, one's going big. Is
Right.
what you're saying.
I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that leaves the Big 12. I think the Big 12 stops at 20 as well. Thoughts?
So do I.
At least for now. Yep.
Okay. And then we'll just for giggles, we'll throw SEC on here because we're talking about total number of schools. That will put the SEC to 20 as well.
Yes.
So we would end up, and this is where it's going to come in. And I'm going to stop right now. There's 133 people watching. There's another 40 people watching us on Twitter. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We're just getting started when we talk realignment. We're going to go for a little while tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm telling you right now, you want to be here. Bob Thompson will be here 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, and we'll be talking Florida State. Come loaded with questions. DM me questions if you have them. And if there's something in there that I can slip in as a question to Bob, I'll certainly do that. But I'm going to invite everybody come back here tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, and we'll have Bob Thompson on the show. Okay, so where does that put? That puts us at super conferences of 60 plus another 14 if we're going to say these are going to be the AQ schools. That means all in, we're talking about conferences that would be competing for the highest level in college football. There would be 74 schools that would be in a quote unquote autonomous conference. Are you guys okay with that number?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's just them. Like one of the G5s is going to get an AQ as well at 5+7.
I'm not talking about who gets to play at the end of the year. I'm just talking about who are the power conferences, the autonomous conferences.
Yep. I mean, no one's going to ride. I mean, you're not getting anyone who's coming up to sit at the table. You have to be in one of those leagues.
If you're not in an AQ conference today, is there a chance that you can still get in? I think, yes. Moen, you have ideas that they could still get in. You guys are talking about adding schools to the ACC, correct?
Oh, yeah. Oregon State and Washington State are going to get back in the AQ. I think the Atlantic Coast Conference just becomes the All Coast Conference. You had Tulane, Rice, Oregon State, Washington State, Memphis maybe, a USF would be a good ad for them.
Let's do this right now. So I'm gonna call them provisional auto qualifiers, okay? And we'll just do a quick count. In fact, let me copy this. Can even make it more cute. All right, we want to go paste. So provisional auto qualifiers, OSU, WSU.
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
Tulane.
USF.
Tulane. Okay. Who else?
USF.
USF.
Rice.
Okay.
Rice.
That's 4. Right. That's 5.
San Diego State.
You think?
I'm staying a little east of that.
It's an R2. It's in Southern California. They could want that market. I'm saying you have to put them there as a consideration.
You can put them as a consideration.
It's an idea that they want more schools on the West Coast for Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford, and Cal, right? Mm-hmm. So I could see that part of it. There's just a lot of schools that are trying to get these slots, and so that's why I'm just trying to understand who that might be. Do we? I'll just put them in here. I think there are others. UTSA. I think there's a few that could potentially.
UConn.
I have a wild one for the Big 12, possibly in the Big 12 in the future. Like nearing the end of this, Liberty.
Oh, geez. You're talking 30 years, Immaculate?
No, I'm saying like if they get to 24, 25.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll put Liberty on here.
I'm just saying if we're going to San Diego State, that's when I would look at them.
I don't think we go that big, though. I think they're going to try to keep these conferences smaller.
You got to put Memphis in there, I think.
You could put Memphis at that round.
And UConn.
Some of it's going to matter how
UConn needs to be on there, yep.
Like if the Big 10, sorry folks, was maybe to take a few more from the Big 12, that's going to open up slots in the Big 12.
Maybe.
So at that point in time, if you're losing a couple or more, and then you're also going even higher than 20, that's quite a few spots that the Big 12 could have open when the time comes. And that's like, if we have conference playoffs, new rules, a whole lot more money for a conference to grow with. I know it sounds funny,
now we start going down the rabbit hole of some of this stuff.
That's with the ACC. I mean, I haven't even gone into the value of stuff.
Out of those 3 schools that I don't have an icon next to, and we're at 14 for the ACC, are we saying which one of those last 3? Oh, sorry, I did UConn. It's this one. It's ACC.
UConn's ACC.
Yeah, I
UConn Big 12. I've got Utah Big 12.
Oh,
I think they're Big 12 edition.
Okay. Interesting. So who's the 6th ACC school then?
It's either going to be Memphis or San Diego State. Take your pick.
I think maybe the West Coast thing might have legs.
All right, all coast conference. Let's go San Diego State.
Well, they already all are. So I think so.
Especially adding Tulane in the New Orleans market, it's just gonna you're gonna have the
Right.
Gulf Coast, Atlantic Coast, Pacific Coast.
Memphis and Tulane, I would think, offset each other a little bit.
Memphis is a difficult one. I think if the Big 12 needs to expand, they would look towards Memphis.
Yeah, and
if they have to replace somebody.
Mhm.
But it's last. Memphis is just at the bottom with Liberty with me.
Right. Okay. All right. So what is the SEC's if they pick up the 4 mid-Atlantic states or schools? What is their value?
Their value. People underplay that. People underplay the North Carolina, Virginia value for the SEC and what it does.
I'm going to say 70 million. If they pick
I'd put them at the same as the Big Ten, but initially maybe more. Just because of viewerships and that's just a whole nother different area that they're getting into. Now I think the Big Ten in the end will be more.
Right.
Not at the next negotiation time when they go. But
yeah, that's 2029, 2030.
There's a lot of people in chat, that are SEC fans, and they're saying like they're not going to go easy at doing this for. Like, one, it's going to be a smaller payout to those schools, but two, I think they're going to make ESPN pay for it.
All right, let's quickly get in a super chat here. We got from Ryan Wiley. Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate the super chat. He says, I think the FSU legal action will affect ESPN's relationship with other conferences. I would agree with that. What do you guys think?
Well, sure, yeah. They're absolutely. They're gonna. I think ESPN has to come up with their own solution in all this Michigas over Florida State. They're not going to keep the ACC at the same rate, even if the ACC backfills. They're not going to get the same money.
Yeah,
so there's going to be a renegotiation between the ACC. Yeah. The Big Ten and the ESPN are done. That's done. That separation is a hard separation. You're never going to see Big Ten on ESPN for any rights. So that's a Fox product. The Big 12 is the stepchild that gets shared back and forth. The SEC is ESPN, clearly. I think the ACC remains ESPN. But it doesn't remain ESPN at the same rate.
Let's open it up. I'm gonna put the link to join the show in the comment section. We got 130 people here. Not gonna be able to talk to a lot of people, but if you feel strongly about why your guesses and how they coordinate with ours, you want to come and tell us why, I'm going to invite you to join the show. So just click on the link. It should bring the client up for you and you can join the show. We can't take a ton of people. It's just too many. So we'll try to do a few and then we're going to go back and do some comments. So we're going to do both written comments and call-in comments right now. This looks really good to me, by the way, guys. I'm glad we built this. I still think Clemson and Miami are a toss-up. You guys believe that Clemson, well, Immaculate thinks they're Big 12. Tell everybody why you think, Moen, that Clemson could go to the Big 10.
I don't think that Clemson can go to the Big 10. I think
I thought you said that. I forgot it says ACC. My bad.
Yeah.
What am I thinking? I'm thinking Miami. Sorry, I was thinking Miami.
Miami's going to the Big 10 because Fox Sports wants Miami in the Big 10. They want the Miami market. Miami's AAU. Florida State's going to be AAU within the next year or two as well. So it's a matter of Fox Sports wants it. Clemson doesn't have the academics or the market that Fox Sports wants. So it's Miami.
Yeah,
and it's going to be in future. It's future proofing for Notre Dame.
Explain that.
Notre Dame and Miami have a rivalry, Catholics versus convicts. So, eventually, we've talked with Bob Thompson. Rivalries matter in conference realignment. So,
absolutely true.
You have a built-in rival to Notre Dame when you add a Miami.
Okay, Immaculate, want to add anything to that?
I'm in agreement. Miami over Clemson. Now, I don't necessarily think Miami to the Big Ten, and I have my reasons for it. But just in this lineup, that if that was the one, if it's not going to be GT, if it's going to be either Miami or Clemson, I would definitely say Miami. Even though I don't like their campus for the Big Ten, I don't like their no stadium. I think the brand thing is cool, and obviously Southern Florida, but they're surrounded on three sides by water. So whereas Georgia Tech and Atlanta, all surrounded is the South. So I just think that's a lot better insertion point. But if I'm going between Miami and Clemson, it's definitely Miami.
Okay. I definitely believe that Clemson has an opportunity to get screwed and they'll end up in the Big 12. That could distinctly happen.
I think that's the big one that helps boost the chances for the Big 12 to get a bigger pay. It's largely Clemson.
Yep, I agree with that. All right, well, nobody's decided to join the show, so I'm going to post the link one more time, and then we're just going to start doing some comments. We'll work through them until we have somebody join the show via call in. I can't go all the way back. We are over 400 comments right now, so I'll just grab something in the middle.
Yeah, it's been going fast.
It has been going.
Can I say something about Miami real quick? I see a lot of people bringing up the stadium situation. Miami's going to have to commit to building their own stadium. The Big Ten is not going to take them without commitments. Mm-hmm. When Washington and Oregon joined the Big Ten, they made commitments. Oregon committed to building their hockey program out. They committed to improving their research. Miami's going to have to make certain commitments that are going to have to be followed to receive a full share in the Big Ten.
Could I say something to that real quick? I've gone into Google Earth and actually looked around the campus trying to figure out where the F this could be. Tropical Park, whatever it is. It's like, I don't know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes off to the northwest. It's not next to the campus. It's on the other side of the highway. It's basically surrounded on two sides by highway. So it'd be, that would be your backdrops for it, is the highway. It's really just not a good setup. I don't know how they solve this problem. They're all surrounding them is just, it's all residential, and it doesn't seem to be a...
Let me respond to that, Immaculate. Where does UCLA play their home football games?
In UCLA, it's a good point, but my point is the one that they were pulling from there is USC. Now, if you want to go into that, that's fine, but that's the school that they had to bring along for USC. Now, I don't think Florida State needs Miami to come along to come in. If that became true, then I 100% it's like, yep, fair point. I just think that whoever comes with Florida State is independent of that. I don't think Florida State really has one in particular that they're like, yeah, we have to have this or it's nothing. I mean, I don't think they care that much. I think they just want out.
Well, no, Florida State doesn't, but I think the media markets, you want North Florida, you want South Florida.
There's, like I said, there's absolute positives to it, but you're limited to South Florida and a whole lot of water surrounding it. Whereas with Georgia Tech, you got Atlanta, and then all of the South surrounding it for a certain distance for travel wise. So I think that argument in terms of South Florida is great, but I think Atlanta and surrounding areas trumps that.
So let's talk about Miami. The first time anybody heard about Miami, of course, was on Greg Pflugar's show, Peek Around the Corner, on Saturday afternoon. And basically he said he's hearing that Miami is what? He was not on the stage. They were in the front row of realignment. And I listened to that. Immaculate and I spent probably an hour afterwards talking about really what that could mean. I will say this. We know Fox wanted Oregon not for their research capabilities. They didn't buy them because they had the best conference set up for expansion in Eugene. They came along as an ad, a value add driven by brand value. And that's where Greg's coming from, is the brand value of Miami supersedes all these other issues. Immaculate.
Sorry. Go ahead and finish your question. I was
going to say Immaculate says that, there are some things that make it look like it's not as appealing. But at the end of the day, who do we know that's driving realignment the most? It's the media. Media companies are the ones that have deep pockets. So their consent is really important to whoever moves along. Miami was just given AAU status, and we know that's not a requirement, but it's a nice value add. So in my opinion, they're a great bonus. The question is, and I still question the logic of having 2 in Florida. Go ahead, Immaculate.
Well, I think Florida State is the Oregon move. So I think Washington has a great program there, but they were not. That wasn't a program grab. That was the school could be absolute garbage, and we don't care. They're that good as a university grab. Oregon and Florida State are the same move. So you're saying, would the Big Ten have taken Oregon and Oregon? No, I don't think so. I think the networks get 1 pick, and that's what covers the cost. And then the conference gets the other pick, and that's how they work together. I know a lot of people say, oh, the networks just say all, but it's a partnership. And if we have Bob comes on and he says that's what happens, and that was Fox, so I'm going to take him at his word, and that makes more sense to me. So I think Florida State, and then it's who do you think the conference would actually want? And that's where I say either Miami or Georgia Tech, and I lean Georgia Tech.
Okay. Ryan Willie corrects us for $2. Sorry about that, Ryan. You gave us a super chat, and I got your name wrong. I apologized. It's Ryan Willie. And again, thank you very much for being here. And your super chat's really important to us. Really quick, just want to remind everybody to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also follow us all on Twitter. And that will help you stay at the front of realignment. We do the work for you, so you don't have to. You can just come in and talk and be part of the conversation. That's what matters to us. Let's see. Another one here from Coy. He says, who would be the rivalry games during rivalry week for Florida State, Notre Dame, and say Miami if they join the Big Ten?
Florida State, Miami would be the rivalry. Notre Dame and USC would be the rivalry.
Immaculate?
Ooh, that's good. Who takes that? I would actually probably say Notre Dame and Miami, and then Florida State and Penn State.
Oh, okay.
I could see Notre Dame and Notre
convicts
Dame
and Catholics,
Miami.
And then you have your Florida State Penn State matchup.
I'd love to see is Florida State Michigan. That's what I'd love to see.
Michigan
or Ohio State, Florida State and Ohio State. They have a little bit of a relationship. Let's get them up in North and get them playing around.
They'll play, but not for the not for rivalry week. They're not going to give up $20 million
every year.
I can sit back and say I want to see that.
I want to see that game too. I'm just saying for rivalry week, Ohio State Michigan brings in $20 million. Like that's not.
All right. Before we move on to the next comment, and I'm flagging comments as quickly as I can, do you guys, either one of you, want to say anything else about why Miami over Clemson before we move on?
Yeah, Florida is a gigantic market. You need the North and the South. I mean, the Florida market is so diverse that you need both. That's why, just like you take UCLA and USC to control LA, you take Florida State and Miami to control the entire state of Florida.
Okay.
To me, with the Big Ten, it's kind of hard to just draw a line or make it clear to see, but you have to have a balance between the academic side, research side, and sports side. And that's not necessarily the same with other conferences. They care about academics and they want to have a school that looks good in that. But with the Big Ten, it's a big part of their decision-making process. I mean, that's how Rutgers and Maryland got there. It wasn't just markets, it was also the schools. So that's why I think Miami over Clemson. Miami has proven it with their medical research, their AAU status. While I still think that was a political pick, they had the numbers to make it reasonable. Clemson is just not. Clemson is all about the brand of their football, and the day that football, for whatever reason, starts to fail, then you have nothing of value for the Big Ten. So, and for the SEC, they don't need that. So that's why I think that's big. That's a Big 12 brand in the future.
Right. I want to add one more thing if I can real quick, Bomber.
Of course.
Miami is spending $20 million in NIL through the portal and through recruiting. They are putting money into the football program, more money than Clemson is putting into their football program. I understand Clemson has been the more relevant program recently, but Miami has shown that they're going to pour money into their program to try and improve it.
So is SMU.
Well, I agree, and that's why SMU's in an A4 conference now.
Well,
plus they're pouring it in to get into the A4 conference.
Yeah.
But I think Miami has shown the Big Ten that, hey, we're spending money to get players here. We will spend money to build a stadium here.
But I think, let me cut you off right here, because I think that's where I'm coming from. This is Miami putting itself forward, in my opinion.
Yes.
They may pull it off, but I don't believe that Tony Petitti is sitting in a room somewhere just pining over getting Miami. This is Miami stepping up, saying, we will submit as much money as you need. We will build a new Coliseum. This is their self-promotion. It's not people going and say, just got to have Miami. That's the difference, because they are saying that about Florida State.
Yeah.
So,
Florida State's the pick that's carrying your value.
Yeah, I'm just trying to set, expectations so everybody knows there is a difference between promoting yourself and then being the flip side is somebody else wanting you. Two different things. Okay, so this comment I think is really important. We talk about so much about some of these other schools and where they may end up. I added these schools to the list: Boise State, Fresno State, and Colorado State. My idea with those three schools is they're going to be their final location is going to be in a combined best of Mountain West AAC conference. That's my opinion. They're going to be in a conference that is going to have the best of the rest, basically, and we'll end up with 3 AQ top dog conferences. You'll have a fourth that is hanging on as a power conference, and then we will have a best of the rest, and that league could go up to 24 schools. What do you guys think about that?
I think Colorado State could end up in the ACC.
I'm just best of the rest. Okay, you think they might
the other
end up
two
where?
are? I think Colorado State could end up in the ACC. The rest of it, you're right. Boise State, Fresno State, best of the rest.
Okay, what do you think, Immaculate?
For me, I mean, if we're going into, I think at some point in time there is going to be a considerable grouping together, merging or whatever between some Mountain West and AAC schools.
Right.
I think much of the AAC's Eastern power kind of got cut up, so they'd have to expand pretty heavily there. But I think that's going to be the top of the G5. It's going to be this coast-to-coast conference. So that's what I'm seeing there, and I think that's where a lot of those are going to be. Unfortunately, I just don't think that there's that much room left in the Big 12 for the West Coast. I think most of those that will be looking to do that, you're going to be immediately behind Oregon State and Washington State anyways, unfortunately. Right. I mean, it's just what it is. And so I don't see a whole lot of chance for them. And I kind of throw Colorado State in that too. So I'm mostly them some type of G5 conglomeration.
Okay. We're calling that best of the rest for now on.
Yep, that works. That's what I'm at.
Daniel Gygax, $1.99 super chat. He's also a member of the Big 12 Mafia channel. He says Clemson fills their stadium, Miami doesn't.
I think Ryan Thomas was looking to call in if you're still doing calls.
That's true. Miami doesn't, but Miami hasn't produced a winner recently. Once Miami starts winning, they'll start filling their stadium. Clemson has had success very recently, so I say give Miami a chance.
Okay. Ryan Thomas, I'll bring you on. These are going to be short calls, though. We'll get you on, get your comment or question, and then we'll get you out, okay? So we can move on to some other stuff. But absolutely, you're a member of the Big 12 Mafia family, and I'd love to have you join. So there's the link, StreamYard link, and just know we're going to have you around for just a few minutes. Let's see here. There's some other, so many great comments, guys. What about this one? Jamie Thornton says, he's replying to a comment from Joey Z. He says, Florida has been dead set on being the king of the state and has never wanted either school in the SEC. Looks like they will get their wish In your opinions, I'm asking you as Royal U, do you guys think there's any chance that Miami ends up in the SEC?
0.
No. 0.
Okay, I agree with that. Yep, I agree with that. Charles M says AAC plus Mountain West is total plus a few more would be 32 plus schools mega conference. Charles, when you did that math, did you take out Tulane, USF, Rice,
Yep. Take out a
SDSU,
few.
Liberty? You have to make sure those come off the board too in that final count.
Unless he doesn't think that's happening. In case.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan.
I don't actually see a mega conference there. I see two conferences that'll come to an agreement and have their champions will play each other.
Yeah, that's the best of the rest. All right, Ryan Thomas, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right.
So give us some quick insight.
Well, all I can say is immaculate from your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We'll see. There's definitely going to be some mistakes in there somewhere.
Which part, Ryan, specifically? Which part?
I would love if you talk about the Big 12 getting Miami, Clemson, Syracuse, and Pitt. That's a major media revenue game changer. I mean, it's not going to get you big. It's not going to get you Big 10 SEC money, but that could seriously net you, another $10 million in media revenue per school each year. That could be a 40 to $45 million, a year, for schools. I mean, I think that's certainly a possibility. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think all of us on your show and who've listened to Greg before, I think the UNC, NC State, UVA, and Virginia Tech picks are. I just don't see it unraveling any other way. I think those four are SEC bound.
Okay.
I would remind people on something. The ESPN contract with the SEC has a pro rata clause. That means that the SEC gets the same amount of money for any of those four schools. So anyone that wants to use the argument of them diluting anything, it's just BS. It's just fluff and BS. And at the end of the day, the SEC could bring in all four of those schools at 50% for the remainder of the contract, and that would net each SEC team another about $8 million per SEC team. And if you look at the Big Ten, already has a $10 million $10 million per school media advantage on the SEC. For the SEC, that is a no-brainer. That's just my opinion. That's a no-brainer, and I'm going to be a jackass when I say this, but anyone else that disagrees is an idiot.
To which part, Ryan, specifically?
Those four have an unbelievable amount of rivalries, history, and tradition matchups. It's very compelling, and each of them do occupy significant portions of the various markets in their states. And, I just, there isn't dilution. There isn't. And the rivalries between those schools would be something that would create a great deal of value. So I think at the end of the day, the money is in the banana stand, and I think that's going to happen. Now, I agree with everyone on FSU being Big Ten bound. I think people don't realize they already spend more on research than Nebraska and Oregon. And FSU, I think I could be wrong. Immaculate and Moen can correct me. I think they're on track for AAU status, at least with whether it's this summer or or the summer of 25. I think they're on track with the investments they've been making. So I mean, I think people that try to make that argument are just kind of, they're not seeing the forest from the trees. Now the tough one that I really think is a hard one to gather is who's number 20 for the Big Ten. Could it be Miami? Could it be Georgia Tech? Does Notre Dame finally acquiesce? I don't know. I think Notre Dame is, I think they're going to dig their heels in. I think if they go to the Big Ten, it's going to be a situation where they're 21 and they might just do 3 7-school pods. I don't know. But Notre Dame, if they want in, they're in. They've got a spot if they want in. And so, I mean, I think right now, um, I'm probably going to lean towards Miami and FSU going to the Big Ten. I certainly think if they can get all of them out cheaply, then I certainly think that Georgia Tech could be. I mean, on paper and logically in my mind, I think the two picks should be Georgia Tech and FSU, but it just depends on what the price tag is getting out. And
Yep.
I think that's sort of that's sort of where I come down on. So, I mean, these are good, thoughtful picks, and I certainly think that um, the ACC. And for those of you guys that many of you guys are familiar, I mean, Immaculate has some great thoughts on sort of kind of a private school based conference that the ACC could evolve into and fold in the Ivies if they're required to give scholarships. Most of you guys are mature enough to handle that discussion and actually smart enough to handle that discussion. Many on Twitter are not. Um, so I mean,
That's the
but
worry.
yeah, and
Well,
that's the
that
thing.
doesn't scare us, Ryan.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
Yeah.
I've
But
talked
I
to these guys about it. It's just we're not quite at that point of really having that big conversation yet, but it's out
yeah,
there
I
if
mean,
anyone's curious.
and I absolutely agree. I think that the thing is um Notre Dame. I think that would probably be their preference. Would try to be that make that happen. If they can't, um, I don't know how they feel. Yeah, I think Notre Dame's going to try to stay independent as long as possible. And if they can't make the ACC private thing happen, then maybe I don't know. Maybe they park all their other sports in the Big East and do a scheduling agreement with, or just schedule more games with or with the Big 12 and SEC. I don't know. I mean, certainly they seem pretty stubborn about the whole matter, and I just don't know what's going to happen with them. But in any event, I think the Big Ten will certainly take FSU and either Georgia Tech or Miami. And then when Notre Dame wants to come, they're 21, and there might be 3 other schools later. But I'm not going to take up too much other time. Thanks for all your comments, guys. Great thought that you put into it. Hopefully, what I said wasn't too insane, and you guys have a great day.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it, of course. And you're part of the family, so whenever we can get you, we try to do that.
Oh, well, yeah, as long as I'm part of it. Well, I don't want to be on the wrong side of the 5 families because we know what happened to them.
Did you end up getting the rally towel I sent you, by the way?
I did. Thank you so much, Bomber. I'm
Okay.
sorry. We've had a lot of things going on in
Hey,
the
it's
house the
Christmas,
past couple
man. It's
weeks.
not a big
So
deal. I just want to make sure you received it. That's all.
okay, well, I appreciate that, and
You're
thank you
very welcome.
everybody. And Moen, slam some crown royal back for me. So
All right. Well, I've got to correct you on one thing, Ryan.
go ahead,
Yeah.
Moen.
It's not the money's in the banana stand. There's always money in the banana stand.
Exactly, and that's a great reference for those of you that don't get it, but it is a great reference. So, hopefully, and I don't think the Big Ten is dumb enough to burn down the banana stand. The ACC was. So,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
anyway, take care,
All
everybody.
right. Happy
Bye-bye.
See you,
holidays, Ryan.
Ryan.
Have a
See
good
you
night.
Happy
later.
holidays.
See
Bye
ya.
bye.
Let's get some claps out of there, Moen. Let's go. Sound effect man. Ryan Thomas is always a very, very smart guy. He's been watching realignment really longer than we have. He's been doing it for BYU and data dives with Jeff Fuller for over a decade. So, yeah, pretty smart comments there. We had some other comments come through while Ryan was on with us. I want to bring these up really quick. Jamie Thornton says, as Greg talked about, Fox wants Miami for advertisers, and I would put in their brand. Miami brings a lot of different demographics and has a national following still. Miami doesn't need a huge stadium as the local following isn't. And then he ran out of range. But that's it. It's not so much about what you get in Miami itself, is what they bring to you the rest of the country.
To me, the stadium is that's why I found it interesting that Fox prefers, supposedly Miami over Clemson, because the stadium is just as much for the networks as it is for the school.
Well, sure.
It's the backdrop of the show, what they're paying for.
Yeah.
And you want noise, you want excitement. You want the whole experience that is college football.
Yeah.
Miami does not bring that. I mean, it's maybe one of the worst. So yeah, I disagree. I think that is actually very important. I think that's why they're not on the radar for the SEC at all, because it's definitely not SEC worthy.
You want to add anything to that, Moan?
No, I think again the stadium thing will resolve itself. But before they join the Big Ten, they're going to have to agree to make their own stadium, whether it's off campus or on campus.
Okay. I would just ask anyone who go look into the neighborhoods right around that school. Go look at it. Go see how easy. I mean, that would be a hard political move in order.
They would have to tear down some houses.
It would be
there.
Yeah, and that's not a neighborhood of people around there who care about American football. They don't give a crap about it. So I mean, that would be a big political fight.
We welcome to the stage the R Webb of R Webbs. How we doing, Baylor? Good to see you, Webb. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear him?
I can barely, not really.
Your network connection is lagging out, I think, Webb.
Or you might need to be closer to the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, because we can't hear you. Are you muted, maybe? We can't tell.
Now.
That's just an internet thing. I had that earlier.
It's really low.
That was my problem earlier. You might have to cut out and then come back.
Why don't you reconnect and come back, Webb?
Okay, will do.
Oh, all right. Wait, we can hear you now.
That works.
All right. Go ahead. What's on your mind? How we doing? Happy holidays. No, we lost you again. I hate technology.
It's just weird that both I had issues and he is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now you're talking. See, we can hear you every other word.
Okay.
Now?
Okay, I'll just start talking then. Hey,
There you
great show as usual, guys. Okay, let me bail out.
No. Just keep talking.
We can hear you
You're
fine.
waiting for us to talk.
I think we're just lagging between us and you.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hey, couple of comments about your about the.
You might want to pull that down. It was working better when you don't have that up.
Okay, so a couple of things. First, great show, great topic. I was going to comment on the Miami thing first, and Jamie was kind of hitting on it. I think where Fox is going back to Greg's comments on Saturday. Miami has a huge, Hispanic population. Granted, the Hispanic community is not a monolith, but it's got Miami has a huge brand value. Cuban, South Central America, and so I think that's what Fox is looking at. And so it's not so much double dipping in Florida as you get Florida State as the state school, and then Miami as the bonus of South Florida, plus getting more tentacles into the Hispanic community. So that was kind of the first thing I was going to bring up. The other thing was in regards to, and Balmer, you and I are on in total agreement here. I think Clemson is in a precarious spot, depending on how strong, in my opinion, the Virginia 2 and the North Carolina 2 are paired together. And I think more on the North Carolina 2. If North Carolina can separate from North Carolina State, I think that gives Clemson a chance at the SEC. But if they're tied all together, then I think they're locked out. And then I think that's where I agree with, I think it was with you and Moen, where I think Clemson could end up in the Big 12. Right. The other thing that, I don't think I've heard anyone talk about is in regards to the Virginia piece for the SEC is, especially with Virginia Tech and how popular they are in that state, in that region, that actually allows the SEC not only to get into Virginia, but dip into the DMV. So the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, which gets them a little bit into Big Ten country. So I wouldn't discount that at all. So I think for the Big 12, depending on how things play out, I think we're all pretty much in agreement. Louisville, Pitt, I think Clemson could be on the board. And then I think the last spot out of 4, because I don't think anyone goes beyond 20. I think that last spot could come down to Duke or Georgia Tech. Take your pick.
That is, I mean, at the end of the day, what we have to decide when we're in these discussions is what is most important. What are they trying to do? Are they trying to only build football monoliths, or are they trying to build culture type things like the Big Ten talks about? So, I mean, who wins those political battles, I think, is really where we're at right now with Virginia and North Carolina. Immaculate?
Yeah, I would just ask him a question. I thought that was a great point in terms of Miami, in terms of, not just a new market, but, a whole new kind of reaching out to a new culture to try to get them to pay attention, because that would actually be bigger than just that area. It would be kind of doing what the Big 12 is doing. But how much of a risk do you think is in that? What's the chances that it doesn't work, that doesn't get you inroads into that, and it becomes kind of a dead end, versus if you say go with Georgia Tech and Atlanta and all that surrounding area there that loves football and is into that, and you're not there. The risk is, can you get people to pay attention to Georgia Tech versus just Georgia? But I don't know. Just where do you weigh that risk? Because it's a good point you brought up.
All right, sorry guys, I'm getting the double echo, so I want to make sure I heard Immaculate before I jumped in. I think for Miami, I mean, just because they're so ingrained, I don't think there's much of a risk there. In comparison to, say, Big 12 trying to dip into Mexico. But the good news there, I think, in regards to Mexico, using the Big 12 kind of as a comparison, I think in a way the NFL has kind of helped plow a little bit of that already, just because there is a segment of that population that's exposed to football, especially like the Dallas Cowboys, and how popular they are down there. So I think the Big 12 has something to build upon, plus having presence with a whole bunch of border states. So I would say the Big 12 is probably more of a gamble than that leap in terms of culture, as opposed to Miami and as my so everyone can go back to the 80s, and it's just ingrained in that community. I think it's just a really natural pickup for the Big Ten from a new, and Fox from a new culture standpoint, a new way to if you will, present the conference to a demographic that may not be as much exposed to it, because the Big Ten doesn't have really a Southern presence to this point, and just the fact that Miami passes the test from a visual test, if you will, from academics and the potential, especially if they can resolve their stadium issues and such. I just think that it makes total sense.
How big of a loss, Moen, is it if the Big Ten does not get Virginia and North Carolina?
Well, let's judge this based off of, do they get Florida State?
I think all 4 of us are assuming they do.
Okay, if they get Florida State and they get Miami, it's not as big a loss. They get Florida. Okay. They take the state of Florida. I think Florida makes up for. Yeah, obviously they'd love to have UNC and UVA, but if they can't get that, and they can get Miami and Florida State, I think they'd be fine. It's it's even Steven at that point.
Okay. Immaculate, Webb, you guys have any thoughts on that?
That's kind of why I like Georgia Tech as well better, because then you're Florida and Georgia versus North Carolina and Virginia.
Right.
And if the SEC once again bumpkins out of this thing like they did with Florida State, and they don't grab all 4, and then they don't get anything, if you're the Big Ten, you're sitting there saying, we might try to talk Fox and Friends into going, getting some North Carolina and Virginia later on when those states are like, okay, we don't have to keep them tied together any longer, because that helps the SEC. The day when they're not tied together is the day later that the Big Ten might be able to just grab two. Part of the problem with the Big Ten right now is that they're not willing to grab all four, like 0%, right. Especially when you have, a Florida State and Georgia Tech, or Florida State and Miami as your choice for two. Like, why mess around with the four up there? Because as Moen says, that's a great game. And I even like the game of Florida and Georgia the best. Those are your two main southern states.
Webb, here's a question for you from Summit Hawk. Thank you so much, Summit, for the $5 super chat. And thank you for being a valuable member of the Big 12 Mafia family.
And thank you for the whiskey recommendation. I've got my 1776 rye and bourbon.
Okay, I'll jump in on this question, then I'll get off, guys, because I know you got other folks waiting.
Yeah, go ahead. That's what it's for. Go.
I think, as weird as this sounds, I think it's Georgia Tech, because I think the Big 12, as much as we talk about basketball, I just think the powers that be, in terms of the presidents, are still more, focused on football, the presidents and the ADs. And I just don't know if Yormark would be able to sell that. Plus, Georgia Tech being there in Atlanta is just an opportunity that I think, the Big 12 would probably leap at. Whereas in comparison to Big 10, I think Fox being a heavy influence is more looking at Miami. So that's kind of how I kind of put it there. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Duke ended up being the pick instead, either, for various reasons.
Thank you so much, Webb. We appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot. Have a great night. Happy holidays.
You too.
Have a good night, buddy.
We'll see you later.
He always brings a different angle.
He does, and I love it, because as we're talking through these, I'm looking back at our list, and I'll bring it up again. I find myself changing ideas sometimes. Maybe I won't do that now.
Sometimes whenever I'm saying things on X, and if I see an R Web response, I'm like, uh-oh, what's he checking me on this time? Because it's always usually pretty good.
Well, and the point is we're doing this for fun, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's paying us to do this, but I love talking about the different options. And I can't wait for Wild Ute to be back from vacation, because he has a lot to contribute, especially in this field. And I can't wait to have him back here at the beginning of the year. Really quick, before I take this next question, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Day after Christmas, we're over 170 people watching live. We've had up to 40 people watching us on Twitter. I want to let everybody know there's a new feature that if you comment on Twitter, it now pops up in StreamYard. So they just turned that on over the weekend. So if it's easier for you guys to watch on Twitter and leave comments, they're telling me that those comments should show up. Now, I haven't tested it. Somebody needs to go out there and get to the Twitter feed and send a message and see if we see it. But that's a neat feature if they've actually turned that on. Other than that, make sure you follow us on Twitter, and then subscribe and turn on your notifications. Here's a great question from Nathan Necht. If Big 12 goes basketball route, it'll be a 6-team pickup: Clemson, Georgia Tech, Duke, Pitt, Syracuse, and Louisville. Otherwise, remove Duke and Q's. And I think there's only one thing that I would change on that. I'm just looking at the list really quick. Louisville, Pitt, Clemson. Yeah, that's right. I think Georgia Tech would be the wild card. What do you guys think?
I mean,
I don't see it.
I see the value. I see what he's saying. I'm kind of just on the route though. Like I've seen what Stanford had to say about joining the Big 12. I tend to think Duke's saying the same thing. It's not just about money or whatever. It's whenever I see Stanford extra way, I'm assuming Duke's thinking the exact same. I mean, they're like brothers from another mother type of thing. I mean, they're the same thing on opposite coasts.
Did we answer this question? If you had a choice, who should the Big 12 take?
That's what our web was talking
about.
Oh,
our web with it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure we got it and we don't miss any super chats. Another super chat from our let's see, Ryan Willie, right? Not Wiley, Willie.
Willie.
For $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Ryan. And Ryan's also a member of the channel. Thank you very much for your patronage. He says, my wish list for the Big Ten would be Florida State, Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami, Kansas, and KSU if they go to 24. I joined the membership over the weekend. Thank you so much again, Ryan. We appreciate it. I think this list is a dream list that Mo and you talked about, except you wouldn't do KSU. You would do Texas A&M, right?
I wouldn't do KSU or Clemson.
Okay.
I have Texas A&M. Well, do we want to go out to the 2030 projections?
Go ahead.
In my 2030 projections, I have the Big Ten taking Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, Kansas, Georgia Tech, and Texas A&M. And that's where they stop at 24. That is their national conference.
Immaculate, you want to say anything to that?
I don't know. I'm kind of at 20, and I do think that eventually there's going to be more, but I think there's going to be a lot happening between now and then. Like, I want to see where all these lawsuits are going and what effects that's going to have. I do like his picks. I think every single one of those the Big Ten would look at and go, sure. Kansas has been looked at for a while. The Texas A&M thing to me is wild talk, but they match all the criteria. So
riddle me this. 3 major conferences, 20 teams apiece. You have a fourth conference that's going to be probably around 20, if that's the round number they settle on, but it's going to be really a mishmash of what's left of the ACC and maybe Notre Dame as an anchor, and then these other G5 schools. Say we're in that world and it's 2030, 2031. Why would you need to go 4 more schools?
Because you're going to become the national conference.
You're
going
already
to be
a national conference.
No, you're not. You don't have a Texas element. You don't have a Georgia element at that point.
We're assuming Texas A&M wants out because Texas is in.
Right. Well, we're assuming Texas A&M wants out because they want to join a better conference. Okay. At that point, the Big 12 is looking at itself as the Big 10 is looking at itself as the NFL.
Right.
They just are. They're just looking at themselves as A, and everybody else is B or C or below.
Okay.
So you've got pods, conferences. You're going to have your own conference playoffs. You're going to determine your own national champion.
Yeah, I think that's a far way off, though.
Well, I think by 2030 it's going to happen.
Yep, and that's why I can't really pick a 24 right now, because I think it's dependent upon something like conference playoffs. I think you need that extra mechanism for making money in order to afford that extra addition. So for me, I need to see more. But I definitely think the goal would be to expand once they have that ability. So that's why I'm at 24. I used to have that 25-5 theory thing going around, but I don't know when that's going to be. We need to see NCAA lawsuits start to come to a close.
Jen, I was on their show, the Renegade Report before this show. It was a great show on YouTube. Look them up. I was a guest star there today, and here Jen saying she wants Immaculate on the show. So there you go, Immaculate. There's your invite. Thanks for being here, Jen. It's great to have you here and watching. If you want to join the show, Jen, I will send you a DM. I'd be happy to have you join us. Let me get your invite out if you're still there. I'd love to have you on. They can give us some more Florida State insight. Give me 1 second.
Maybe tell us who Florida State would want with them.
There we go. All right. Oh, wait. She's waiting for a U-Haul, she says. Oh. So let's do that. Let's try to get her. I'm just seeing this note now, Jen. So if you're driving, I apologize. I missed it. I missed your note earlier. But there's your invite if you want to join us. Let's see. Just trying to get additional comments here. So many people care about what's going on. Caden's dad says, how about these 6 to the Big 12? Clemson, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Pitt, Syracuse, UConn.
Everybody but Clemson. I think Clemson ends up being a backfill for Texas A&M in the SEC.
Immaculate.
Just looking at it, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm not quite sure on UConn because we're talking about a full member here.
Yeah, UConn football is.
I think that comes down
right
to
now.
like ESPN, because remember this is to get more money from ESPN. ESPN is in the state of Connecticut. That's who gives them tax breaks for that huge, massive complex that they have there. So I think if ESPN came to them and said, please add this to it, we'll give you this amount of money,
right?
Then yes, I think UConn is in. But it's, I mean, that's one of those theories that may or may not play out.
I would say I think we're much farther away than the horizon that Moen is talking about. 2030, I think we're still a ways away from the big consolidation, the final. But
just remember this: House versus NCAA is set to be in court January 2025. I don't think anyone wants that to go to court. So I think next year sometime we get conclusion to that. I think that a lot of these other court cases will be concluded sometime this next year. So I think that we're going to have a pretty good idea sometime in 2024 what the future is going to be, who's going to have the power, how it's going to get laid out. And that's when I would start to think, okay, let's see if any of these guys can go past 20. Because remember, paying for it to 20 right now, SEC can add 2 games to their conference schedule. Big 10 and Big 12 can still add 1 more, and then they're all at 10 games. So there's other ways to add money besides just these schools.
I think it's really important that when we continue to talk about this stage that is being set in front of us, that the certitudes are very few and far between. It's very, very few facts. So what we're doing is taking the breadcrumbs like we had for the previous year when Colorado was looking to possibly be the first school to leave in May, when Greg brought that up and peeped around the corner. They were setting the stage. Everything was set ready to go. And then it didn't happen. Same thing with Florida State in August. They didn't leave when they thought they had all their ducks in a row. So I just think things take a lot longer. But at the same time, once they start to move, stuff goes fast. And we saw that with the Pac-12 again, which I think is our exemplar. Let's see here. So Jen evidently is driving, so we can't have her back. Sorry about that, Jen. I just saw your note. I apologize. It's like a mission control here, and there's some input I just can't bring in my head.
A lot coming in.
A lot going in. I need a producer. By the way, if there's anybody who wants to become a producer for a show like this and you want to start doing some internship stuff, I'd be open to talking to you. You want to come in and we could have you doing maybe some moderation and some other things that would help us. I'd be willing to have that conversation. If anybody's interested, 170 people watching, maybe one of you wants to get into this YouTube stuff. Ariel, am I saying that right? Ariel Judah says, Dave Adams, seems like UNC, Virginia Tech because of the regions and academics. But how would you justify if you're SEC for NCS and UVA? Seems they will likely go for the UF narrative here in Florida. Which one of you wants to explain that?
We'll probably say the same thing here. I'll just go real quick and he can add his to it. It's not that I think any of us think that the SEC is like, no, we want all 4. We don't want just 2. I think their first negotiation would be, we just want Virginia and North Carolina. And then those schools, their states, whatever, are like, no, it's all or nothing. And then it comes down to SEC saying, okay, we'll take all 4. But it's not for full price. And so it's not about just, picking who you want. And then that's all it is. There's complications, there's politics, there's a lot of issues involved. So I agree that they want just 2, but I think that they're going to have to negotiate and end up taking 4 and they'll get a lower price for each school. But yeah, I get what he's saying. And a lot of people would think that, but I think that they're going to have to do 4 and nothing.
Moen, and we want to explain a little in greater detail the legal tie-ups that are in those 2 states?
Yeah, I mean, with the North Carolina, they share the same board of governors, North Carolina and North Carolina State. So they're not going to leave North Carolina State behind wherever they go. For Virginia Tech, it's more a matter of an elected official. The Attorney General has said that he's not going to allow it to happen, that he's not going to allow UVA to leave VT behind or VT to leave UVA behind. So They're joined at the hip. So the question is the North Carolina and Virginia markets valuable enough for them to take 4 to get the 2 they really want? The answer is yes. For them, it is.
Yep.
And what would that time horizon be?
Whenever they can get out.
On the
same time, I mean,
lawsuit?
Remember, the SEC has 8 games scheduled right now. The Big 10 and Big 12 have 9. If there is some type of money issue here, this is when you'd likely see the SEC move up. Supposedly, they tried to sell a 9th game to ESPN, and ESPN didn't buy it. But I think in order to make all this happen, you might see the SEC move to 9 or 10 game schedule as well, and that'll help cover the money.
Do we think that the Florida State being the first step in a long a trip of 1,000 miles is taken with one step? If that gets resolved, like the Pac-12 one was resolved within 5 months, if that's done before August of 2024, does that spell doom for the rest of these other steps, or is that going to take years again to unwind some of these other schools?
I think whatever cost they end up paying to get out probably becomes the price tag for anyone else. So that's what we need to see. We need to see what that settlement comes down to, and that will, in my opinion, signal how many schools are going to let out. The higher it is, the less schools that are leaving.
On Jen's show, there was a lawyer there, Danielle, and she made it sound like there could be a possibility that they might hold out and not settle. They want to win this thing and not have to pay any money. Now, it's not necessarily a huge percentage. We didn't really put a percentage on it, but she said that could be a possibility that Florida State just decides, because they put $0 on their suit. They said, we want out. These are the reasons we want out, and we think we don't have to pay you anything. So it's in their legal filing, that 38-page document. So we have to know that they're thinking about that. So what's the chance they decide to thumb their nose at the ACC and just say, we don't want to settle. We want to go to discovery. We want all your communications out. They think they have a case. They could win this thing outright.
Right. Well, they're saying that for leverage. They're saying that for leverage. They want to settle. Everybody wants to settle. It's just about a matter of how much you're settling for. Florida State knows they're not getting out for free, but they're going to threaten them with discovery and this and that to try and bring ACC to the table to settle.
Yep. It's time is a problem. There's not as much time for this to go through as we've seen with the Pac. 2026, in my opinion, is still a target. I think, you got 572 and you got 0. They've set the parameters. Like, here's the high, here's the low. We're going to meet somewhere in the middle. And how far this has to go before they come to an agreed number. And remember, this isn't necessarily just about FSU. This is going to set precedent. This number could be used by others. So it's when the ACC does this, if they decide to settle, they got to understand they're setting the price for a lot more than just FSU.
Sarge, the Big 12 Mafia enforcer, is optioning in to be our intern. Unfortunately, I'm not paying anything, Sarge. I'm sorry.
25 cents?
You get to work for free. You have the opportunity to come and work for me. That's what it is. I'm sorry I can't pay you. I'm not making any money myself. I'd rather
We'll have you on the show.
Of course we'll have him on the show.
Well, there you go.
Let's see here. We got these so many questions. Awesome Lawson says $24 an hour. You guys don't understand. I'm losing money sitting here. So why would I pay somebody else to lose money with me? That doesn't make any sense. If I didn't make that clear before, I got to say it now. There's no pay involved in this. It's you get to learn how to run a YouTube channel. That's how it works. All right. You guys are awesome. These are really funny. Casting for Chrome says, heck, I'll do it for a chalupa coupon.
See, we're getting the price down there.
That's more in line with what I can actually afford.
This is a good negotiation.
I didn't know chalupa coupons were available. Those are ridiculous.
No, I'm like, you can get yours after we get ours. How about that?
Right. Mm-hmm. Sky, another one of our members, says, interesting that California Regents let UCLA leave Cal behind, and we all know how that worked. There was a lawsuit, and they tried to keep him there. Board of Governors let him go, but they made him pay what's called calimony. They're having to
Alimony.
give a certain number of million of dollars to Cal as a subsidy for
Right
them
on,
going
Sky.
to the Big Ten.
Yep. And at that point in time, you might as well just bring them all, have their rivalries in conference, have the whole area rather than having those schools end up paying $10 million or so back to North Carolina State or Virginia Tech.
College Football Playoff Edit says he's going to be switching his programming to realignment from the 12-team playoff because that starts next year. And more the merrier.
Big talk. I would.
Takes a lot of time and effort, though. It's not easy. Let's see here. God, this is so fantastic. This has been an amazing night. Day after Christmas. Could you guys imagine?
A lot of new names out there. Welcome to everyone who's coming in for the first time. I'm seeing a lot of new names, so very appreciative of
that. Dave Adams, who I believe is a new viewer, says BYU was easy to leave Boise State. I think BYU has a little bit something in their heart for Boise State personally, but there's just not enough gravitational pull to get Boise State to an AQ conference right now. Just not enough. There's two. It's already overburdened. There's already schools in there that don't bring anybody who doesn't bring, say, 250,000 people on average viewers should not be in a power conference. And there are some schools that can't even average 250,000 people watching a football game. That's just you got to set the ground somewhere.
But there are differences in terms of platforms. Unfortunately, the Mountain West is on a bad platform. CBS Network, that sports network thing, that
right.
Most
they're
people
on
don't
Fox
even,
as well.
They get like a couple of games a year.
Yeah,
it's just not a whole lot. I tend to think that most of these schools, when they move, like GT, most of their stats are because of who they're playing in the ACC. It's not their own.
It's not because of them.
But it's the same thing in the Big Ten. I mean, when you get a USC, Oregon, Washington, Florida State, Penn State, Ohio State, you're going to have a couple of games against them where you'll get good ratings. So
next, I'm projecting August next year. We're starting to do our ramp up for the season, talking about the different conferences, and I'm imagining what this Big Ten could look like. We already know how most 95% of it is, but there's a potential. There could be other schools there, and it would just make the Big Ten just incredible, absolutely incredible as an entity. Non-School News says, howdy, boys. How you doing, Num? Good to see you, man. Glad to have you here. We need to get you back on the show.
You might jump on. That TCU perspective.
Numbskull, isn't he West Virginia?
No, he's
TCU.
Is it like there's so many people I get mixed up. Let's see here. Congo, new viewer. Congo says FSU will join the Big Ten if UNC UVA join the Big Ten. The SEC will gain North Carolina State, Virginia Tech. I'm going to tell you right now, if they don't get Virginia, North Carolina, they are not taking Virginia Tech and North Carolina State. I don't think. I don't think they do that, but we'll have to see. Big Ten will add Georgia Tech. That's what Congo says.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yep. There's value there. Some people, people believe differently on that, and whatever happens.
Yeah, it is all opinions. It's all opinions.
I think if I was a Florida State person down there, though, I would want the connection to Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't know.
For recruiting.
Jen's not here. I don't have a Florida State person that I've used in the past to give us that opinion. I don't know if that's true or not.
Morris Simmons out in chat, he's saying he's from Tallahassee himself, and he was saying Georgia Tech, and I was kind of saying that to him. I was like, yeah, I'd want that connection to Atlanta. If you're giving up a whole lot of what you had before down there.
You talking about for the Big Ten or the SEC?
In the Big Ten, if you're a Florida
I thought
State.
you were talking about the SEC. I'm sorry. I got tied in loops. Jim Munier, I think he's been on the show before. Good to see you, Jim. Says, what you guys are missing, no outside entity can sue a state of Florida. Yep, we talked about that. We've talked about it several times. The indemnity that you can't sue the king. That actually goes back to parliamentary law in England. We brought it over. and you can't sue the king. What is that term? I'm forgetting the title.
Sovereignty.
Sovereign immunity.
Yeah.
Sovereign immunity. You
Which
can't
is,
sue.
There were some people who were saying that there wasn't any position for it, just for them being sued, just because it's not in their right to work. But now when it comes down to location and venue, that might come into play, because of them actually being an entity within the state, that their suit going in state might actually have preference, because the ACC does not have that relationship with any state.
Agreed. Sky, again, one of our members says, who would have ever thought the Big 12 would benefit by being the first conference to blow up? That is ironic, isn't it?
They were supposed to be the ones that got chopped up. That's why I was always afraid and worried for Iowa State.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be a problem.
And, that's true. It's very true.
But that's where people don't give Bowlesby enough credit in that. He basically stuck both middle fingers in the air to the networks and says, nope, we're going to keep going. And, he grabbed those 4 schools, and then Yormark came in and marketed the hell out of it.
Tempest, another one of our newer viewers, says Big will get Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, and Clemson. SEC will get UNC, UVA, Virginia Tech, North Carolina State. Big 12 will get the rest. I'll for my opinion, I'll ask you guys this next, but my opinion is that's not going to happen. The Big 12, there is no merger, guys. The Big 12 does not need to pick up the schools that can't carry their weight. So, I mean, it's a numbers game, and the Big 12, there's
it's
not
a lot of
be
numbers.
A best of the rest. It's
and
not going to work that way.
And I think if Stanford, I think they kind of saw the writing on the wall a while enough back that if they thought that this was where it was going, they'd be in the Big 12 already.
Oh, sure.
They just
at better options.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I just don't think that they care about this as much. Like there's just a little bit of different mentality of some of those schools. And
we have Jen in the house. Actually, are you in a moving van there, Jen? Good to see you.
Not yet.
You're lagging out a little bit.
There we go. Is that better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. No, I'm not in a moving van just yet. We are loading it now. Well,
okay.
My friend and her amazing friend are doing it so that I can be on with you guys. So
fantastic.
Nice. Well, we're a good excuse to get you out of doing work.
So Florida State is going to the Big 10. We're giving you that. Mm-hmm. Who's next on the list?
Who does Florida State want the most?
Okay. So I know that I love Greg. I love the Pfluger show. I love it. Love. But I'm not with him on the Miami thing. I don't see Florida State rolling out the red carpet for Miami. I don't. But then again, I start thinking, okay, well, Clemson's academics are not where the Big Ten would be so inclined to, but Clemson is an interesting situation. So I definitely could see Clemson getting the invite. I really could. I know what everybody's saying, but I honestly could see it. All right. So if you're going to put a gun to my head, I think it's going to be Georgia Tech. I know.
It's the Florida State pick. I mean, it makes sense. It gives you Atlanta.
Yep.
I mean, people say that's a Georgia city. That's fine and great. But I mean, you guys are used to playing there. You're used to having that connection. And Georgia's 5 minutes away from Tallahassee.
It's literally 45 minutes.
Yeah. So that's part of it, I think. I think that combo is an excellent combination.
Especially with the academics from Georgia Tech, the TV market from Georgia Tech. That's just what I could see. Now, could I see Miami? No, I honestly don't. I just don't see them getting into the Big Ten because of what their program is right now. I just don't see it. If this was in 2 years, maybe. But right now, I just don't. I mean, again, I don't see it. I mean, you guys can tell me where I'm wrong. I'm gonna be happy to hear it.
Moen.
You're wrong. Let me tell you why. Miami has invested over $20 million in NIL to attract recruits through the portal and through recruiting.
Yeah.
They are building their program. They are investing in their program. So what's happening today isn't necessarily they're putting forth the effort to improve their football product. And I think that's going to show through. I mean, they've got enough 5-stars coming in, enough guys are landing in the portal. They're competing with everybody they're not competing. They're competing with blue bloods. They flipped a guy from Ohio State. They flipped a guy from Georgia. They are building their program. Yes, today not so good. 2 years from now, when those 5-stars develop, who knows? They could be in the 12-team playoff. They could make a run in the 12-team playoff.
Do you honestly believe that with their current coach?
Mario Cristobal has some coaching issues in terms of timing and decisions, but we've seen terrible coaches win before. Jimbo Fisher won at Florida State, and he was a terrible coach.
Winston. Come on.
There you go. Well, Mario Cristobal is just a Jameis Winston away from winning a national title.
But a quarterback isn't going to Mario Cristobal.
Really? What about Cam Ward? Do you think Cam Ward's going to pick Miami or Florida State?
I think he's going to go to the NFL, maybe.
Oh, well. I disagree. I think he's taking the Miami money.
Maybe. I mean, and maybe. But again, I'm not even – see, this is the problem. I'm not even worried about a Cam Ward going to Miami because as long as Mario's the coach, I don't worry about it. Look, again, Mario Cristobal got fired from FIU. He got fired. You can put all the money you want to in Miami, and which they've done for years, until there's a product on the field. I don't think people with big money are going to invest in them. I just don't. Like, as far as like big time conferences, like I just don't. I think they've all seen us, the same thing we've seen with our eyeballs. Miami fans, oh, we're back. And they've been back for 30 years. But they haven't
I don't disagree. They've made terrible coaching hires since Larry Coker. I don't disagree. But they have shown a willingness, and NIL in particular, to go out there and spend millions of dollars on kids who've never played a snap. 5-star athletes. Before the largest donor got busted, they were going to build a stadium.
Yeah, and they're still renting a stadium that says Seminoles on the front of it. I get it. I get the jokes. I love it. There's nobody in the stands. That's the problem for Miami. There's nobody in the stands of their rented stadium. And I get it. Like, some teams don't have on-campus stadiums. I absolutely 100% get that. This isn't just a Miami bash fest. I think Miami is one of the premier programs if they could get their shit together. I just need to see it before I believe it. That's where I am with them.
I would just counter you. Miami's not selling out their stadium when they're playing Wake Forest. What happens when they play Ohio State? Does that stadium sell out?
No.
Oh, disagree. There are so many Ohio State fans in South Florida that they would sell it out.
Okay, well, maybe Ohio State fans would sell that out. But, like, Miami, the only time they have fans in the stand is when they play Florida State. We know this. We've made the jokes about it. It's gross. It's disgusting. They have more recruits in the stand than they have fans. It's, again, I wish Miami would be better. Florida State would be in the playoff if they were.
Well, they're a generation away, right? Last time they were any good was Larry Coker, and it was 2001, 2002, 2003. And it's 20 years later now. So it's a generation removed.
Yeah.
At least Oregon is now. Oregon's brand is strong.
I mean,
so
how many national championships has Oregon won?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Mullins on this
one.
I'm going to go with
Mullins. They have
Mullins.
Nike money. It doesn't matter.
Miami has cocaine money. Cocaine money is strong.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I'm gonna agree with him on this one.
Look, the ACC is a corrupt organization. We all know that now. We've seen all the documents. We saw the lawsuit. We know what happened with
my God.
SMU. We know what happened with Cal and Stanford. The ACC is not the Big Ten or the SEC.
No.
They cannot throw their weight around like they did in the ACC. Now, Greg might be right. Miami might be the next one to go with Florida State. Regardless of if they are or if they're not, though, is that where they end? Because they're going to lose the Mid-Atlantic states if they go that route.
Yep.
It did get Greg to admit to something when I called in to him about that. And that's I got him to say that Miami is in over Clemson. And that's what that means. That all the talk right now, when we talk about Georgia Tech, that's because that's a future thing. They're not involved with any talks right now, I don't think. I don't think anyone's talking about them at any network or any schools.
I think Miami's talking about Miami.
But I think that all the talk is about Clemson, and then Miami's put their name in it, maybe, or they're just saying Miami has more value to the networks than Clemson. And that's striking. But I think that's what that's saying. I don't necessarily think it means Miami's in because the networks say so. It's just to the networks, Miami is more valuable than Clemson.
It's an either or for me. If they don't take Clemson, they're going to take Miami. If they take Miami, they're not taking Clemson.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it comes down to if that price tag for Florida State to get out is low enough, I think that causes so much to change, so many moves, so many schools get active. At that point, that's when Georgia Tech could work their way in. But for now, the talk is Florida State and Miami and Clemson and North Carolina, and then maybe whoever else works their way in. So I get the talk right now that it's Miami over Clemson, but I think once that price tag comes out, a lot's going to start to shift.
So Nunschool News says $100 million for FSU to get out. I personally think that's almost exactly what the final numbers are going to be. What do you guys think?
I've been saying 50 to 100 for a while would be the negotiated exit price.
200, Moen?
I think it'll be 2. I think 2 is where they will settle.
Okay. Schools will stick around.
I say 110.
And why the 110?
Because I'm going to go, okay, this is my thing. And Nathan, thank you so much again for coming on to my show tonight. But I think with what I brought up to Danielle, I think they are going to just negotiate out of the grant of rights, which I think they will win.
Right.
I think they're going to negotiate down the exit fee. I think that's where it gets settled itself, which is now 120. So I'm going to go 110 just for that reason. And I only say this because I don't think anybody really wants to get into that negotiation on that grant of rights.
Right.
Because how many other schools are going to go in if they get involved in that?
Right.
I think
that's my thought.
It's got to be right around 100 million. If you go up to 200, you're going to have schools that aren't going to be able to pay that. They're going to stick around. They're going to collect some of that money, and then they're going to want to use that money later on at some point to get out. If you're the ones who are absolutely left behind, you want to get everyone out all at once. And so all of that money comes to you. So the difference between 100 and 200 million to those schools is actually, there's probably none. Because you're not getting the whole 200 because that's going to some of the other schools. Whereas if it's 100, you're getting the whole thing between you. So, and if you think 10 schools leaving at $100 million, that's $1 billion to be split up between what? 5 schools, maybe? If you do it now before the new schools are in and they're not part of that agreement, 5 schools spreading out $1 billion. I mean, I kind of think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. But the one outlier to that is the fact that they went by themselves.
Yeah.
If Clemson or Miami thought that they were badass,
there you go.
They would have gone out at the same time or the next day. Yep. They obviously don't.
No, yeah, I don't think they have a Big Ten or an SEC invite at all.
Now there's a big PR move on Miami's part. I am shocked Clemson is still on the back burner here. I'm stunned.
I 100% agree with you on this. I feel like the silence from Miami and Clemson is so loud. If they had a landing spot, which by the way, guys, if Florida State didn't have a landing spot, they would not be doing this. So
Right.
Anybody in the chat, like you guys got to understand, they would not have done this without a landing spot. And we know where the landing spot is. It's Florida State to the Big Ten. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
So Florida State is not, the SEC is not interested in Florida State. It's not going to happen. Although I did hear some rumors that the SEC is now kind of going to try and play defense on that.
In what way?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
I just got a little tidbit from a TV producer that said the SEC is now looking to play defense on this. So
they'd be dumb if they weren't.
Let's keep that on the back burner. I don't look. I'm a Noel. I'm a Florida State fan, but the SEC, like Florida State, doesn't add any value for the SEC right now. They just don't. But what they do add is value in keeping the Big Ten out of it. So let's keep that on the back burner. I don't see it happening. I think the Big Ten with Florida State has been happening for a long time, maybe about a year and a half. And that's, I think it's Big Ten. I worry about this dancing partner thing. Not really worry. It's Clemson and Miami. I'm not really, they wouldn't be concerned about us either, by the way. But I think Miami gets left out.
Well, there's a distinct
Well,
possibility.
I can't believe the SEC thing, because what is their offer? We screwed you out of the CFP.
Right.
Now come to us for less money than you make in the Big Ten.
That's why I said that. That's why I said take it with a grain of salt. It's just from a TV producer that I heard from. I think that's more of a defensive reaction than a proactive reaction. But the truth is the SEC has known this is coming for a while. They're not idiots. They knew it was coming, but they've really only won in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. We got another $5 super chat. Awesome Lawson Clips. I can never say that. $5 super chat says, let's hear the scenarios for where FSU gets snubbed by both the SEC and Big Takes, UNC, Miami, Virginia, and Georgia Tech. That's fanciful world. Go ahead. You guys can guess, but I don't.
That's not happening.
I don't really see one, but they're kind of pushing this whole thing for a reason.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have come out without a guarantee.
No.
Absolutely. I think they've had that guarantee for about a year, to be honest.
That's what we're hearing. Greg said last December, right? December 26th or something. So, I agree with that.
Ohio State's on board with Florida State. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. And here's the other thing. I get it, Clemson fans. I get it, Clemson, or any casuals that just started watching football, right? Clemson's been good. Clemson won games. I'm not going to go into the clipping, penalty that started their little run, whatever they had. I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to do it tonight because I'm tired and I don't really feel like getting killed on Twitter for it. But what I will say is that Florida State made the ACC in football. Guys, you can go back and look at history. You can look up Wikipedia. You can do all the things you want to do. But it is what it is. And I understand Clemson's been more relevant recently, guys. I get it. But the truth is, Clemson's merchandise ratings, even in Florida State's down year, guys, even in their down years, they beat Clemson in the rating.
Yeah, it's true. Clemson's ratings go with the success of their team, whereas Florida State's seem to be a little more steady, where people will continue to watch them even if they're losing. That's a big deal to networks, I would think. I mean, the future is unknown. There's a big difference between a school that's going to get you good ratings whether they win or lose versus one that gets you good ratings when they win.
Yeah. I think it's more of a thing where you look at the team, the fan base, and Clemson's got a great fan base, guys. I'm not trying to say they don't, but Florida State is more national. Clemson is regional.
Yep, 100%. People around the country know the Florida State brand, the history. Clemson is kind of that new brand that was on the come up. I know people around there say, "Oh, it's not new," but to the rest of the country, it is. That is largely a CFP made brand. So
I mean, before that, phantom clipping call, Clemson hadn't won a national championship since 1981.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. They're from the 80s. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, they rose with the CFP. Great coach. They put in the money on it. They rose at a time when Florida State was down. But you bring them in with that lineup that the Big Ten's having in the future.
Yeah.
Do you risk it? I mean, that's not to say that they couldn't be a big power in it. They could be, but it's a risk. It's a risk that if they do fall off, then it's a nothing ad.
So I think they could, and I think Florida State actually would. I don't know what you could say, like invite or recommend them as their dancing partner. I don't even know how that would work, because I think Clemson has been on board with what they're doing. I think, but although now I think they're kind of getting mad that everybody else is just allowing them to take all the bullets while they're saying the same things behind closed doors. So I don't know.
Another thing too is for Clemson to succeed in the Big Ten with all the new brands we've already added and that we already have, someone else has to go down. So for everyone who's already in the Big Ten, you look at that and say, we've already added USC, we've added Oregon, we've added Washington, which was an academic ad, but they have a high program right now, and you want that to do good. You're adding Florida State. You add in Clemson to that, and I think that there's some Big Ten schools that might be like, whoa, we don't really need to do that. We can have an academic ad. Like, they don't need to win.
Yeah,
like a Rutgers or Maryland.
I think with Florida State probably going to get their AAU status here in the next, I would say by the end of summer. Clemson's very far from that. I know it's not a requirement. I get it. But it still looks better than being so far away from it. I also think with Miami, the Big Ten just wants to get into Florida, right? And with Miami, no campus stadium, their facilities, they have a 50-yard IPF, guys, a 50-yard.
Funny.
I don't know what else to say.
We're going to wrap this up, guys.
I've used Google
Earth
to look.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Immaculate could talk for another 2 hours.
Probably.
But I think tonight we're going to wrap it up. Now, Jen, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. I'm going to,
I was going to say, are you going to be available tomorrow when Bob's on with us?
Absolutely. Send me that link, dude. I'm going to get on. Okay. I can't wait. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to go move some more furniture, and then I'm going to get back home to Memphis.
All right. Drive safe.
All right, enjoy.
Get
good
some rest.
Have a good day.
Soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Carson gives us a $2 super chat. He says, but Clemson has the most famous get-back coach. That's
until Alabama grabs him.
That's a funny joke.
That's
you think so? I don't think he's going to Alabama.
When Dabo leaves, what happens to that program?
Are you kidding me? Like, how much longer do you think Saban has? 2-3 years?
But I don't think Alabama wants any part of him.
Why wouldn't? I mean,
why wouldn't they? He's a multi-time national championship coach.
I think the Lane Kiffin, Sarkisian. I think there's other options.
I mean, I think Sark was
he's
maybe,
kind of
but he's got Texas rolling. And
Dabo Swinney is not known to be the greatest guy to work with.
Oh well,
I agree. But he played at Clemson. He played at Alabama.
Yeah, he's
an Alabama guy.
We'll have to see, I guess. I don't know. That would be a surprise to me. All right. I think we're going to call it good tomorrow night. We have Bob Thompson on 8:00 Eastern. Join us then. Other than that, everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. This was a full show. Make sure you follow us all on Twitter and and subscribe to the show on YouTube. Moen, do you want to say anything on the way out?
Yeah, nobody buys a car for somebody for Christmas. I'm tired of the commercials on TV where people get Lexuses for Christmas.
What do you mean
That
they get those
never,
big bows and stuff
no,
going?
no, that never
That's fine.
happens. Get those stupid commercials off my TV.
All right, immaculate.
I can't follow that up. That was too good.
Okay, all right. I'm just going to
That
let
was
it
too good.
lie there. Everybody, we'll see you tomorrow night. Follow us on Twitter and stay out of trouble. Drive safe and don't drink and drive. We'll see you later. Have a great night. And we're going to say peace out.